Good, at least. Thankfully, a major disaster was averted, particularly at the aviation sector. I had people telling me, what's going on? I'm stuck in Abuja. I meant to fly into Lagos. We hear that there is a fire in Lagos, at the Lagos airport. And indeed, the Lagos airspace was closed as a fire raged at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, the old terminal. And there you see the images from there yesterday. And goodness me, you should have seen the panic, because we just had a conversation around aviation last week, right? And this is happening. There you see the fire service combating the fire and the aftermath of that fire. Guys,
we're happy that nothing untoward happened, so no life was lost, but there were destructions. I know that this particular section of the international airport, Terminal 1, is due for, I don't even know the word, whether rehabilitation, reconstruction, because it's, especially when you're traveling and sitting by the walkway in certain parts of that Terminal 1, it's just first eyesore. So this is maybe saying you got to get this work done as quickly as soon as possible. But the most important thing is that the fire was put out. All safety measures, I guess, was in place to ensure that nobody was hurt, nobody was harmed at the end of the day. So we hope that we'll get a proper documentation, proper assessment, proper evaluation of what was destroyed, what needs to be done. But I don't know whether anything will be done anyway after, maybe just for the places that are quite functional. But there are parts that it's just total eyesore as far as that Terminal 1 of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport is concerned. So I think there is a budget of about, I don't want to be quoted wrongly, is that 900 or 700 billion naira for a smart airport. So this may be a good time to release those funds if they've not been released to start work, because the Terminal 2 is functional, but Terminal 1 needs all of the upgrades it requires. I think that should be the Minister of Aviation who visited to see things for himself, and I guess we may hear a thing or two as to what really caused the fire. I think that's the most important thing. What caused the fire? We don't know yet. At least I don't know yet whether there are preliminary reports to that effect, but we'll get to know eventually at the end of the day.
Speaking of preliminary reports, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of FAN, that's the Federal Airports Authority, says that preliminary investigations reveal that the fire may have started from the ground floor of the airport's Terminal 1, where there are offices and a restaurant, and it's believed that that is where it started from and escalated to the roof. She also added that some people were injured, but no fatality was recorded.
Indeed, there is an ongoing rehabilitation at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport of Terminals 1 and 2, I believe, which has gone on for some time. And in fact, the airport authorities are projecting a potential increase in passenger volume to about 17.6 million passengers. I'm not quite sure if that would be a year, but that would be a 17.6 million passenger capacity. So there must be more done to ensure passenger confidence, not just of Nigerian passengers now, but also the international community, that indeed, this very significant gateway into Nigeria is safe. And so we expect, a more comprehensive report subsequently from here. But it's reassuring to note that no life was lost. However, I did hear the managing director of FAN say that there were 6 recorded injuries yesterday, but significantly, those who were amid operations during the fire were, taken to safety, without any incident. Talking about those, at the control tower who had to navigate, aircrafts that were, about to land to safety as well. But the scale of this fire is really, scary. What we saw yesterday was really scary, and we hope that, this does not occur in the future. But it also speaks to, how things could happen sometimes, without announcement. But let's hear also, yet again, from the managing director of FAN, who addressed journalists yesterday after the incident.
Airlines that would actually be making use of the temporary terminal, so Air France, KLM, Ethiopian, and I believe Middle Eastern Airlines. So the temporary terminal is now constructed. We're looking at moving people into that temporary terminal by March so that we can start using T2 for arrivals, because all arrivals will now come in through T2. We're also seeing a lot more departure. So it's, I want to...
Well, that's not the sound bite that we quite expected. The one that should have come through was the sound bite, that was granted to journalists right, at the airport during the fire. We hope that that will come through shortly. But we still have images, showing on your screen right now of efforts to manage the outbreak of fire at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, which occurred yesterday. Guys.
Away from that, as soon as we get to here, we'll hear from the authorities. But let's move away from what happened at the Murtala. Okay, just a moment. Let's take a listen to what was said as maybe preliminary reports from the authorities at the airport.
There's still ongoing investigations into the actual cause of the fire. Well, I am happy to report that there were no casualties. We did have about 6 injuries at the terminal. Of those 6 injuries, the 2 most critical were dip cut as well as smoke inhalation. We did have 12 of our air traffic controllers who were actually in the tower. We did ask them to wait in the tower so that they could support 4 flights that were actually landing. Of course, we did put procedures in place to make sure that they could be removed from the tower safely. We did have our crane operations. Of course, we coordinated and activated our airport operating procedures immediately in line with the Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulation. I'm sure you can see a few firemen with torchlights. They've actually now been able to control the fire and go into the terminal. They're just doing a rescue operation, searching each floor, just to make sure that everything is on point and to try and trace the source of the fire. We had some flight disruptions, and of course I mentioned earlier that 3 flights were actually diverted. The British Airways flight was diverted to Abuja. We also had the Lufthansa flight diverted to Malabo, and of course the Emirates flight, which was also diverted. Minor break in our operations in terms of flights departing and arriving. However, our emergency operations center was set up immediately. We've also set up a remote tower. Flights are landing and departing as usual again. And I just encourage anyone, if you have a flight, while there may have been a bit of delays, but we do have our flights on time now.
Well, we also must commend, the emergency management of the operations following the outbreak of the fire, because it shows that minimal loss was recorded after the fire. According to the managing director, an emergency control tower was set up, and flight operations continued as usual, and those that could have landed amid the fire were diverted to the Federal Capital Territory. So the response time was commendable, such that aviation operations continued not long afterwards.
And by way of update, the minister actually visited, as well as was mentioned, and he said that there will be a reconvening at the airport by 9 a.m. today. That's just in a matter of an hour and 50 minutes for a joint inspection and thorough evaluation of Terminal 1 to guide recovery efforts and ensure operational and safety standards are maintained. As we said, that particular terminal was to be closed in March, actually, for a long renovation. So the timing, yes, it's quite curious, but it's good to see the way it was handled, and we hope that there will be a proper renovation of that Terminal 1, guys.
Absolutely, and from there, let's head to what had played out between, we can call him embattled now, Nasser El-Rufai is now sued the ICPC, as far as his imbroglio, if you will, with the authorities are concerned. First, remember, he's been sued by the DSS for wiretapping the phone of the NSA. His answer to the EFCC over allegations of his tenure as governor of the state due to financial allegations, maybe misappropriations as alleged, as well as the ICPC, we allege were the ones that brought in the EFCC to arrest him at the airport and take his passport. Well, he's filed a suit to declare that the search warrant that was brought in for the searching of his house was, as a matter of fact, from his end, invalid, breaching his fundamental right. In that suit, respondents include the ICPC, Chief of Magistrate of the FCT, the Inspector General of Police, and the Attorney General of the Federation, pursuant to Section 34, 35, 36, and 37. Issues around his right to personal liberty, fair hearing, and privacy. He all quoted all of that. He said the particulars of warrant should include what is mandated in Section 144 and 146 of the Constitution. Let me just cite a few things. Even 143 of the ACAJ ACJA in this particular case. Particular description of this place to be searched and the items sought to prevent general warrant. Here the warrant vaguely refers to the things that first said without any detail. So he literally picked holes in what was considered a warrant of arrest or warrant to search his premises or his house to say, look, it didn't follow due process. First of all, this warrant, there are so many things wrong with it. So as a matter of fact, since you sue me, or if you are planning to sue me, I'm ahead of you, enforcing my fundamental human rights. So this is a beauty of legalese and issues around law. So it's not a question of the judge hearing him and to know whether or not indeed that warrant was valid or invalid. Do they have a right to search? I think so. But how the warrant was prepared in court and which judge gave that kind of warrant is what is contending. So his lawyers are at work citing all parts of the Constitution that is relevant to this particular case. So it feels to me, guys, that Nasser El-Rufai is going to be a very busy man with the authorities, anti-graft agency, the secret police, maybe towards the election. So I wish him well.
Jeffrey, concerning the beauty of legalese, around court cases that have to do with the former governor of Kaduna State and the federal government, we could have an abundance of them now. In between Nasser El-Rufai and the DSS, Nasser El-Rufai and the ICPC, Nasser El-Rufai probably and the EFCC. There were also cases initiated prior to this time by the Kaduna State Assembly against the former governor. That is inconsequential as far as I'm concerned. What is more important is the commitment of either party to pursue the case to a logical conclusion. Don't forget that there could be a lot of politics shaping these cases in the first place, which also speaks to the commitment of either party, to pursue the cases, and even the weight of the merit of either case in the first place against either the former governor brought by either party. What is more important is, the issues that have brought us here in the first place, issues of governance, the issues that Nasser El-Rufai himself left behind as former governor of Kaduna State, that the state government is still battling, issues of local government elections. We just talked about those ones yesterday on the program, following the conclusion of the area council elections in the FCT and other by-elections in other parts of the country. The commitment, of those who are supposed to, be governing to the grassroots, issues around local government autonomy in the first place. Now that the elections have been prosecuted, will the grassroots be allowed, to thrive based on timely release of funds and, execution of projects? Those are the issues that are more important beyond the politics of, cases that have been initiated between the federal government and, of course, the former governor of Kaduna State, guys.
And I hope that at the end of the day, the law doesn't just work for those who have the money, the minds. Because, for him, he can challenge the ICPC or any government agency over these issues. But what happens to that young Nigerian or that everyday Nigerian that is violated on the streets, unlawfully searched without any warrants. It's not even, there's no contention about where the warrant was gotten from. No warrant whatsoever. We must get to that point where the law applies to everyone, whether you have the wherewithal to get a lawyer or a legal team, a team of senior advocates or not. The law must apply. So it's good to see him testing this in court. But what happened to those who were not able to test this in court? That is one that we must pay attention to. But we'll take a moment now. When we return, how are the dailies reporting all of the big stories? We have the front pages for you next. Stay with us.